Imagine being the most feared man in the world, ruling over a nation with absolute power. Now, picture that same man, on the run, hiding in a hole in the ground, desperate and defeated. This was the dramatic fall of Saddam Hussein. But how did one of the most brutal dictators in modern history end up captured in a spider hole, clinging to life with nothing left but defiance? Today, we unravel the shocking truth behind Saddam's capture and execution, and explore whether justice was truly served. On December 13th, 2003, after months of evading capture, former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein was finally found. His capture, which had eluded American forces for the duration of the Iraq invasion, came after an extensive operation, one that had begun with rumors, speculation, and false sightings. But Saddam's end would not come easily, nor would it be without controversy. His execution, following a tumultuous trial marked by violence, assassination, and political unrest, sparked debates around the world. To understand why his end was so dramatic, we must first delve into the brutal history of Saddam Hussein's reign. Saddam ruled Iraq with an iron fist from 1979 until 2003. His reign was a blend of absolute power, fear, and cruelty. Saddam's rule was infamous for the near-constant violence that characterized both his domestic and foreign policies. The Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988, which killed over 1 million people, was one of his most catastrophic failures. But it was far from the only tragedy to define his regime. Saddam's brutal tactics were not reserved for foreign enemies alone. He ruthlessly targeted his own people, particularly the Kurds in northern Iraq, using chemical weapons in a campaign of terror that left tens of thousands dead. His ambitions for regional domination led to the invasion of Kuwait in 1990, which ignited the First Gulf War. Though an international coalition swiftly defeated his forces, Saddam's grip on Iraq remained unbroken. In March of 2003, the United States led an invasion to remove Saddam from power, citing his government's brutal treatment of civilians, his suspected ties to terrorist organizations, and the threat of weapons of mass destruction. While Saddam's reign seemed to be crumbling, his final days would take a dramatic turn. The elusive dictator. By the time Baghdad fell to American forces in April 2003, Saddam had vanished without a trace. Despite numerous unverified sightings and rumors about his whereabouts, the world's most wanted man remained elusive. He continued to broadcast defiant messages to his supporters, encouraging them to resist the invaders. After the deaths of his sons Uday and Qusay, Saddam released a tape calling them martyrs and promising to continue the fight against the American forces. Thus began Operation Red Dawn, the mission to find Saddam. Hundreds of soldiers, armed with intelligence and an unrelenting determination, combed Iraq in search of the dictator. The hunt led them to Saddam's inner circle, his bodyguards, drivers, and low-ranking functionaries, each providing clues that narrowed the search. But it wasn't until December 2003 that the breakthrough came. A former driver of Saddam revealed the name of a trusted aide, Mohammed Ibrahim Omar al-Musalat. Intelligence officers zeroed in on al-Musalat's family, interrogating them until they finally pinpointed Saddam's likely location, a farm just outside his birthplace in Tikrit. It was here, on December 13th, 2003, that the long search would come to an end. Saddam's capture. 600 members of an elite American Special Operations team, along with the U.S. Army's 4th Infantry Division, surrounded the farm. As Saddam's remaining bodyguards attempted to flee, they were quickly captured. The search through the area was painstaking, but eventually they found what they were looking for, a spider hole cleverly camouflaged with bricks and dirt. Inside, Saddam Hussein lay hidden, a shadow of the man who once ruled Iraq with terrifying control. Saddam's first words upon being discovered were an attempt at surrender. Despite having a pistol and an AK-47 hidden nearby, he offered no resistance. What followed was a scene that would become infamous. As an Iraqi-American interpreter, Samir held Saddam to the ground. He reportedly punched the dictator in the face, unleashing years of pent-up anger over Saddam's brutal reign. This moment, captured in an image, became a symbol of the dictator's fall from power. Saddam was immediately arrested and designated a prisoner of war. He was taken to Baghdad's international airport, where his medical examination was broadcast to the world. The images showed a disheveled and defeated man, unshaven, with unkempt hair. For many, the sight was a bitter reminder of the humbling fate of a once-feared leader. However, broadcasting the inspection sparked outrage, with critics arguing it violated the Geneva Convention, which forbids degrading treatment of prisoners. The trial of Saddam Hussein. Saddam was put on trial by the Iraqi Special Tribunal established to prosecute key figures from his regime for crimes against the people of Iraq. From the moment the trial began, Saddam rejected its legitimacy. He called it a show trial manipulated by the United States to further its political agenda. He famously accused President George W. Bush of being a war criminal, denouncing the trial as a tool to ensure Bush's re-election. The proceedings were marred by violence and intimidation. Saddam's lawyers were routinely murdered, and many lawyers working abroad feared for their lives. The fairness of the trial was called into question, with many believing it was tainted by political influence. In the end, Saddam was convicted for his role in the 1982 massacre of 148 Shiite Muslims in Dajjal, Iraq. The massacre was a direct result of an assassination attempt against Saddam, and it was this crime that ultimately led to his death sentence. On November 5, 2006, Saddam was sentenced to death by hanging. As the verdict was read, Saddam shouted defiantly, "Long live the people! Long live the Arab nation! Down with spies! God is great!" His appeal for a retrial was rejected, and the execution was scheduled for the earliest possible moment. The execution, on December 30th, 2006, Saddam Hussein was executed. The world watched as he was led to the gallows by masked executioners, the chants of his accusers and prayers from the Quran echoing in the background. The trapdoor opened and Saddam fell, his neck snapped by the force of the drop. The image of Saddam's lifeless body swinging from the noose became one of the most widely circulated moments in the history of the Iraq War. His body was flown to his birthplace in Tikrit, where in the dead of night it was buried in an unmarked grave. The execution, while seen as an attempt to legitimize the new Iraqi government, sparked numerous questions about its fairness. A controversial end. Saddam's death marked the end of one of the most brutal regimes of the 20th century. But the questions surrounding his trial and execution remain unresolved. Was the trial truly fair, or was it merely a political tool? Many believe that the execution was less about justice and more about securing power for the new Iraqi government. As for the infamous deck of cards given to American soldiers during the invasion, detailing the most wanted members of Saddam's regime, not everyone on that list faced the same fate. Despite the atrocities committed under Saddam's leadership, the question of whether true justice was served remains open. Saddam Hussein's regime is believed to be responsible for the deaths of over 250,000 people. His execution brought closure for some, but for others the haunting question remains: was this the justice Iraq truly deserved, or was it just another chapter in a history of violence and turmoil? Saddam Hussein's death marked the end of a brutal chapter in Iraq's history, but the questions surrounding his trial, execution, and the legacy of his regime remain deeply divisive. What do you think? Was justice truly served, or did his execution merely fuel more controversy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an in-depth look into history's most pivotal moments. Stay tuned for more videos that unpack the complex stories that shape our world today.